The casting director's pen stopped moving, and everyone in the room held their breath. Los Angeles, 1988. Century City Casting Offices, 15th floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the sprawling city. Afternoon sunlight streaming through Venetian blinds, creating prison bar shadows across the polished conference table. The room smells like coffee, leather chairs, and the particular tension that accompanies high-stakes decisions. 3 executives sit behind the mahogany table like judges at a tribunal. Scripts scattered across the surface, headshots arranged in neat piles, coffee cups leaving ring stains on important documents. River Phoenix, 18 years old, sits in the single chair facing them. He wears a simple white button-down shirt, dark jeans, brown leather jacket folded neatly across his lap. His blonde hair catches the filtered sunlight, still bearing the slightly wild texture that makes him look younger than his years. In his hands, the script for Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. The role of young Indiana Jones, a part that could launch him from promising young actor to international star. The morning had been a series of readings, chemistry tests, and improvisations. River read opposite seasoned actors brought in to test his range. He delivered Harrison Ford's iconic dialogue with a natural confidence that surprised everyone in the room. Not mimicking Ford's delivery, but finding his own authentic connection to the character's adventurous spirit and dry humor. "Interesting choice," the casting director had murmured after River's interpretation of a crucial scene. He's not trying to be Harrison Ford. He's finding his own way into the character. But now, during the final decision phase, the air crackles with executive tension. Martin Kasdan sits at the center of the table, the film's director, 45 years old, Academy Award nominee, known for his meticulous character work and demanding standards. Salt and pepper beard, wire-rimmed glasses, the kind of intense focus that makes actors either rise to greatness or crumble under pressure. He's directed some of Hollywood's biggest stars through career-defining performances. His opinion carries the weight of box office success and critical acclaim. To his left sits Rebecca Chen, head of casting for Lucasfilm, a woman who's discovered more future stars than anyone in Hollywood wants to admit. Sharp eyes that miss nothing. Notebook filled with observations about every actor who's walked through this door. She's seen River's previous work, knows his reputation for professionalism and natural talent. To Martin's right, David Sterling, studio executive, early 50s, expensive suit, Rolex catching the light when he gestures. Numbers man who thinks in terms of market demographics and international appeal. He's the one who has to justify casting decisions to investors who measure success in opening weekend box office figures. Martin has been watching River carefully all morning, studying not just his acting ability, but his presence, his maturity, his capacity to handle the pressure of a major studio film. Indiana Jones, even young Indiana Jones, requires a specific combination of charm, intelligence, and physical confidence. The actor needs to convince audiences that this character will grow up to become Harrison Ford's iconic adventurer. "River," Martin says, setting down his pen and leaning back in his leather chair. "You've done excellent work today. Your instincts are strong, your preparation is evident, and you clearly understand the character." River nods respectfully. "Thank you. I've always loved the Indiana Jones films. The character's curiosity and determination really resonate with me." Martin exchanges glances with his colleagues. Rebecca makes a note in her book. David checks his watch, calculating time zones for international distribution meetings. However, Martin continues, his voice taking on a more serious tone. I have concerns about this particular casting decision. This isn't just any role. This is young Indiana Jones, the character who becomes one of cinema's most beloved action heroes. River listens attentively, sensing the shift in energy, but maintaining his composed demeanor. Martin stands up, walking around the table to face River directly. The truth is, and I need to be completely honest with you, I don't think you're leading man material. Not for this kind of film, not for this character. The words land like a physical blow. Rebecca's pen stops moving. David looks up from his papers. The room temperature seems to drop 10 degrees. Martin continues, his voice carrying the authority of years in the industry. You're a fine actor, River. Very fine. But Indiana Jones requires a certain masculinity, a ruggedness, a presence that commands the screen and convinces audiences that this young man will grow into someone who can fight Nazis and survive impossible adventures. River's face doesn't change expression, but something flickers in his green eyes. You're still very young-looking, Martin says, pacing slightly. Very pretty. That works perfectly for sensitive, dramatic roles, coming-of-age stories, romantic leads in smaller films. But adventure films, action franchises, international blockbusters, they require a different kind of leading man. Someone who looks like they could actually handle a bullwhip and survive a temple collapse. The silence stretches uncomfortably. Rebecca shifts in her chair. David clears his throat. Martin returns to his seat, leaning forward with his hands clasped. I'm not questioning your talent. Your acting ability is evident. But this specific role requires someone with more gravitas, more natural authority. Someone who looks like a young Harrison Ford, not like someone who should be starring in teen romance films. 5 seconds pass. The air in the room feels thick enough to cut with a knife. River sits perfectly still, absorbing not just the rejection, but the reasoning behind it. The assumption that his youthful appearance equals weakness, that his sensitivity as an actor translates to inadequacy for heroic roles. Then River stands up slowly. He sets the script down on the table carefully, respectfully. His movements are deliberate, controlled, carrying a dignity that suddenly makes him seem older than his 18 years. Mr. Kasdan, River says quietly, his voice steady and clear. I understand your concerns about my appearance, but I think you might be confusing authenticity with stereotypes. Martin raises an eyebrow, surprised by River's response. River continues, his tone remaining respectful, but gaining strength. Indiana Jones isn't heroic because he looks tough. He's heroic because he's curious, intelligent, and refuses to give up when things get difficult. Those qualities don't require a particular facial structure or body type. They require honesty and commitment to the character's truth. He pauses, not for dramatic effect, but to ensure his words are clear. You're right that I'm young, and probably always will be. But age and appearance are just starting points. What matters is what you bring to the role emotionally and intellectually. I've studied archaeology. I understand the character's passion for history and discovery. I've trained physically for action sequences. I'm prepared to do whatever the role requires. River looks directly at Martin, his green eyes holding steady contact. If you don't cast me, I understand. But don't dismiss me, because I don't fit your preconception of what a hero should look like. Some of the greatest adventurers in history were young, curious people who didn't look particularly intimidating until they proved what they were capable of. The room falls completely silent. Martin stares at River with genuine surprise. Rebecca has stopped taking notes entirely. David puts down his papers, fully engaged for the first time all day. River picks up the script again, holding it carefully. The young Indiana Jones I see in these pages isn't someone trying to prove his masculinity or intimidate people with his presence. He's someone genuinely excited about discovery, willing to take risks for knowledge, smart enough to think his way out of trouble. That's what makes him interesting. That's what makes him someone worth following into adventure. Martin leans back in his chair, reassessing everything he thought he knew about the young man sitting across from him. River continues, his confidence growing with each word. I may not look like your typical action hero, but maybe that's exactly what this character needs. Maybe young Indiana Jones should surprise people, the way the real Indiana Jones surprises his enemies, by being smarter and more determined than they expect. He sets the script back down on the table. Give me a chance to show you what I can do with this character. Don't just with a screen test or a reading. Let me audition with actual action sequences, with the physicality and adventure elements. Let the work speak for itself, instead of making decisions based on assumptions. The silence that follows is different from before. Not uncomfortable, but thoughtful. Charged with possibility. Martin exchanges a long look with Rebecca, then with David. Something has shifted in the room's dynamic. The young actor they were prepared to dismiss as too pretty for heroic roles just demonstrated exactly the kind of intelligence and determination that makes Indiana Jones compelling. Rebecca breaks the silence first. That's actually a very insightful understanding of the character. David nods slowly. The confidence he just showed, that's exactly what we need for this role. Martin studies River for another long moment, then makes a decision that surprises everyone, including himself. All right, River, you've made your point. We'll set up a physical audition, action sequences, stunt work, the full heroic treatment. You'll have your chance to prove that heroism comes from character, not appearance. River's face lights up with genuine excitement, not smugness or victory, but pure enthusiasm for the opportunity to do the work. Thank you. You won't regret giving me this chance. 3 weeks later, River performs a complex action sequence that combines physical comedy, genuine danger, and the kind of quick thinking that defines Indiana Jones. He doesn't get the role. It ultimately goes to Sean Patrick Flanery. But his audition becomes legendary in casting circles. Martin Kasdan tells people about it for years afterward, not as a story about being wrong, but as a lesson about looking beyond surface impressions. That kid taught me something important, Martin says in interviews. Real leading men aren't born looking the part. They become the part through preparation, understanding, and the courage to challenge assumptions. River Phoenix may not have looked like Indiana Jones, but he understood him better than actors twice his size. Years later, after River's death, the story takes on deeper meaning. Industry professionals remember it as an example of his character, his refusal to be limited by other people's narrow definitions of what he could accomplish. 5 seconds in a casting room in 1988. One moment when an 18-year-old refused to accept limitations based on appearance. One choice that showed everyone watching what real strength looks like. Not the power to intimidate, but the wisdom to see possibilities others miss. The audition that changed how Hollywood thinks about heroes. Not because River looked the part, but because he understood what heroism really means.